Hi everyone, it's Tim Hamilton with StellarQuest Real Estate, and in this video we're going to be discussing the housing market in Orange County. We're going to be going through a few graphs and talking about why the housing market continues to slow down, as well as quickly taking a look at the median home price, as well as talking about what happened with mortgage rates since the Fed decided to leave their federal funds rate unchanged and not make a cut, which many people think that they should be doing at this point. So if you're thinking about buying or selling a home in Southern California, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. You can find all of my contact information in the description below, or you can call this phone number here, which is our office phone number, and get connected to one of us that way as well. If you enjoy watching the video, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe if you like to stay up to date on the housing market. We're going to start off by taking a look at a few graphs that we got from the Orange County Housing Report, which is written by a local economist named Stephen Thomas. And the first one we're going to take a look at here is the supply of homes for sale. This is the total number of available homes in Orange County. And you can see that the available home supply is growing fairly rapidly this year. And you can see that we're quite a bit above where we were over the past few years, but we're still well below the 3-year average from 2017 through 2019, which Stephen Thomas likes to use as kind of a metric for what is considered a normal housing market pre-pandemic. And so despite the fact that we're still, below that level, there's a lot more choices than we had over the last few years. And this is a large contributing factor to why the housing market is slowing down, because this year in particular, we're seeing a lot more homes being listed for sale. And then moving on here, we can see that buyer demand is at very low levels. This is below where we were over the past couple of years. And this is actually the lowest demand reading for this time of year since they started tracking it in 2004. So we have more homes coming on the market and we have slightly less buyer demand. So that's allowing the total number of homes for sale to start to build, which is what we saw in the previous graph. And that causes the housing market to slow. And so the next graph we're looking at here is the expected market time, which you can see is also rising fairly rapidly, kind of tracking what's going on at a similar angle to the supply graph. And the expected market time is essentially the average number of days it takes for a home to accept an offer after it's listed for sale. And so as this number gets higher, that means the housing market is slowing down and the market is moving away from being in a deep seller's market back towards a more balanced market. And so as the market slows down, we are seeing that more homes are doing price reductions. Homes are taking longer to sell. Now, there are still homes that if they're priced well, if they're in a good location, and they're in a turnkey remodeled condition, those homes are still likely going to sell quickly and possibly receive multiple offers. For example, the last 2 listings that we put on the market, we like to put them on a Wednesday or Thursday. We do our first weekend of open houses, and then we review offers with the seller the following week. Both of our listings received multiple offers and we had them in escrow the following week. So, if you're working with a realtor that's doing a really good job marketing the home and understands the market and how to price the home properly, you can still find a lot of success in this market. And even though the market's slowing down, it's also important to remember that home prices really still are not dropping. So you can see here that the median home price in Orange County has remained relatively flat over the past 3 months. And so we got this information, this graph from InfoSparks. They get their data directly from the California Regional Multiple Listing Service. And this is the median home price for single family homes, condos, and townhomes. And so right now it's floating, hovering right around that $1,215,000 level. And so it's important to remember that a seller doing a price reduction doesn't necessarily mean that home prices are falling. These are sellers that came on the market, they priced their home too high to start, and now they're having to backtrack a little bit in order to get the attention of buyers and get it at a price that someone's willing to pay for it. And then we're also going to take a quick look here at the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And I get this graph from Mortgage News Daily, which is a great source if you're kind of keeping an eye on mortgage rates. They update this every day. And this rate is assuming that the buyer is not paying any points or fees in the loan. And you can see that the 30-year fixed rate mortgage is hovering right around 7%, just slightly below that number. And the rates kind of ticked back up a little bit after the Fed decided not to cut their federal funds rate. And so mortgage rates aren't necessarily tied directly to what the Federal Reserve is doing, but their decisions do have an impact kind of secondhand on where rates end up. And so Stephen Thomas believes that we're really not going to see any significant uptick in buyer demand until the 30-year fixed rate mortgage gets back down towards the 6% level and stays there for some period of time. So as long as rates are remaining at this more elevated level, we can kind of expect more of the same, the trend to continue where inventory will build and buyer demand will remain relatively low. Of course, there are seasonal factors, so typically the inventory grows and peaks sometime in the late summer, early fall, and then starts tapering off into the end of the year. If you're thinking about buying a home, this is good news for you because as more homes come on the market and the supply grows, it means you're going to have more options to choose from. And as the market slows down, it means it's going to be slightly less competitive when you decide to write your offer. Now, it's important to realize that even though the market has slowed down and we are seeing more price reductions, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to get an offer accepted well below the asking price on every home you go see. In fact, as we mentioned before, prices really haven't dropped much at all. So when you find a home that you like, it's important to understand which kind of basic category that home falls into. So it can be a home that's priced well, and in that case, the home is still likely going to sell relatively quickly, and it could get multiple offers and sell over the asking price. And then there's going to be homes that come on the market that are overpriced, and these homes are likely going to sit on the market, and eventually they're likely going to accept an offer under the asking price and possibly even need to do a price reduction at some point in the future in order to get more buyer attention. So you have to understand which one of these kind of basic scenarios you're walking into so you know how to approach that home when you write your offer. On a home that's priced well, you need to put your best foot forward and understand that you could be competing with other people, so you don't want to hold back. And on an overpriced home, you don't necessarily want to rush in and write a full price offer right away because you could actually be overpaying for that home. So this is where someone like me can come into play. If you do need help and you're not already working with an agent, you can give me a call. And what I can do to help you is when we find a home that you want to buy, we need to look at the most recent neighborhood sales and try to understand how that home is priced and what the likely selling price of that home is. So keep in mind, prices really haven't fallen. So, the homes today are likely going to sell for something very similar to what the most recent sales in the neighborhood sold for. And of course, you need to do some adjustments based on condition and location, but that's where we can kind of discuss and talk about that, as well as strategize on how to write the best offer that will be competitive if you need to be competitive, and also write a fair offer on a home that may be overpriced. And if you're thinking about selling a home, this isn't necessarily great news for you, but it's definitely not time to panic either. The market is still a good market to sell a home in. As I've mentioned before, home prices they're not falling, just the market is slowing down. So typically homes are taking longer to sell on average. But if you're working with a realtor who's above average and has a really great marketing plan, and they do a great job negotiating the deal, then you can still find a lot of success in the market today. So our last two listings, one we recently sold, and that one we received multiple offers. It sold after the first weekend of open houses, and it sold exactly at the list price because we priced it exactly at the highest price that we believed that we could sell it for, and we got them exactly that price. And the other listing that we have currently in escrow, this one was a little bit more of a fixer home, and we priced it well for the neighborhood, and we're now in escrow $35,000 over the asking price. So if you're working with a realtor who understands the market, understands what your home should be priced at, you're still going to get a lot of buyer attention. You're going to get a lot of showings, a lot of open house traffic, and most likely you can still get multiple offers on your home, which can help us get you the highest possible price when we sell it. So if you are thinking about selling and you'd like some help, or you're just curious what your home could sell for today because you're kind of thinking about it and exploring your options, just let me know. We offer free home valuation reports. I can put one together for you. It has a lot of really great information about the most recent sales in your neighborhood. And then if you want to get real serious and get a real specific number, then we'd be happy to come look at your home in person, because we really need to see all the upgrades, remodels, potentially if it has any, and so we can understand how your home compares to the most recent sales in your neighborhood. So if you're interested in any of that, just call, text, or email me, and I'm happy to help you out. If you're interested in learning more about the housing market in Orange County, just let me know. I'm happy to send you the Orange County Housing Report by Stephen Thomas, and he does a lot of really great information in there explaining what's currently going on in the housing market. And again, if you enjoyed watching, I would appreciate it if you hit the like button below, and please subscribe if you like to stay up to date on the housing market.